Hello and welcome to Module 8. In this module, we will discuss how to interpret assessment results in language classroom. In this video, we will introduce two frameworks of reference to interpret scores. The two frameworks are the norm reference interpretation and criterion reference interpretation. The first way we want to mention here is norm reference interpretations. With norm reference interpretation, we compare the score a student received on a test with the scores from some norm group. In the case of a national standardized test, that norm group usually consists of a random selection of hundreds of other similar students who took the same test. For a classroom test, that norm group typically is the other students in the class. With norm reference interpretations, the students who took the test are ranked from those with the highest scores to those with the lowest scores. In Vietnam, for example, many schools and classrooms in the old days often provide information about the students' ranks in a class or even in the whole school. Usually, if children were ranked among the top students, their parents would be very happy, even though they didn't know what their children have learned. If a student was reported to have the lowest scores compared with his or her friends, his parent would likely to get upset about that. When making a norm reference interpretation, it is very important to describe the norm group, that is, the group with whom the student is being compared. You can see that getting an A in a class of highly competent students is totally different from getting an A in a class for low-level students. That's why you have to describe the norm group to provide a meaningful explanation of the scores. The norm reference interpretations has some certain advantages. Because all the scores are compared, a student can still get good grades even if the course was not taught well and everyone gets low grades. The test is too difficult for the norm group, or if the norm group is a weak group. However, there are also some disadvantages. This kind of interpretation promotes competition. No matter how well a student does with materials in class, only the smartest, most talented, and hardest working students will get good grades. Sometimes, students who have learned the materials well may not get the best grades because they are not the brightest students in the norm group. For example, some high school students may choose not to take a higher level class such as advanced English, or parents refuse to put their children in an advanced class because they know that this type of class consists of highly talented students. They feared that in comparison to those highly talented classmates, their children would have less chance to get good grades. As a result, the students may choose to enroll in a less challenging class where they would be one of the best students and would earn a high grade. Moreover, norm reference interpretations do not tell much what skills the students have learned. Students in a weak group can still receive a good score. For example, if a student was reported to be the best student in an English class where grades were based on norm reference interpretation, you really do not know how well the students have mastered English. The only thing you really know is that the student was the best student in the class. If the class consisted of only students with poor English skills, or if the teaching was not done well, then the student can be ranked the first but still learn very little English. So, that's about the norm reference interpretation. The second way to explain test scores is criterion reference interpretation, with which a student's test score is compared to some preset standards or criteria. For example, to get an A, you have to score between 93% and 100% or more. If you score between 89% and 92%, you will get a B. However, to make meaningful interpretations, it's important for teachers to follow strictly steps. First, they have to identify the domains or the skills that student will be assessed on. Then, they have to write the learning or assessment objectives for such domains. Finally, they have to design test items that can measure the intended objectives. So, if a student scores 75% on a test, it should mean that the student has successfully learned 75% of the objectives. One of the clear advantages of the criterion reference approach is that it provides a better view about what skills students have mastered. This is simply because the students are being compared with a set of skills and knowledge required for certain levels and assessment goals. Another advantage is that students can have a better sense of how they are performing in the class, so they will be able to monitor their own progress better. By looking at the test results, they can know if they are doing well or they need to get some extra help with the material. A third advantage is that this approach is non-competitive. One student's grade on the test is not dependent on how other students performed. This kind of approach fits in nicely with cooperative classroom practices with a lot of teamwork and group tasks nowadays. However, this approach also has several disadvantages. Students may get low score because the teacher does not teach the course well. In a similar manner, if a teacher designs a test that is more difficult than was intended, the students may perform poorly on the test and earn low grades. From the student's view, these are disadvantages. However, some educators might argue that these issues make teachers more responsible for providing good instruction and suitable tests. Another disadvantage of the criterion reference approach is that it cannot be applied to all testing situations. When there are too few or too many learning objectives, it may be difficult to design criterion reference tests. Moreover, scores cannot be interpreted appropriately when teachers fail to clarify the objectives and fail to design the test covering those objectives. So we have talked about two frameworks of reference to interpret scores. So now, I think many of you may want to know which one is more suitable for your situation. Generally, criterion referenced interpretations are most suitable when there is a clear set of information, objectives, or skills that the test is expected to cover. They are the most suitable for some types of assessment, such as placement assessment, where you want to know which set of skills your students are good at, and then you can place them in a suitable class for their level. This kind of interpretation is also suitable for diagnostic assessment, where you want to ask which with particular skills is the student having difficulty. And criterion reference interpretation is also suitable for formative assessment, which lets you know whether your student make enough progress with the skills and are ready for the next level or not. In the meantime, norm-referenced interpretation works well when it's impossible to measure each objective, and teachers have to choose a sample of objectives to develop test items. Norm-referenced interpretations are also suitable for some other types of assessment, such as selection assessment. For example, a university cannot accept all the students who take the entrance exam, so only the students with highest scores could be admitted. There are several ways of reporting score for each approach. If you follow the norm-reference approach, you can rank your students by the scores in a class test from the lowest to the highest, and then report their position. The second way is to report the percentile rank, that is, the percentage of students who had that score or lower. If you work with Excel, you can get the percentile rank by using the function %rank, as you can see in the slide. If you follow the criterion reference approach, you can report the students' overall score, the sub-scores in different criteria, the meanings of the scores in each, or teachers can report students' overall profile of ability, strengths, weaknesses, and growth. So basically, we have covered two frameworks of reference to interpret scores, which are norm-reference and criterion reference interpretation. Each fits well in certain situations. So this is the end of the first video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.